Okay, scholars, let's continue our work in European intellectual history. We're coming to the end, moving into the 19th century, and you know, I've been exploring sort of how science gets started in the Enlightenment, and then today it's a sort of romantic era, but then it's also a era that really does establish a lot of what we have today. And we're going to be, I have an assignment for you out of this book here, written by Andrea Wolf. She's a popular writer. She's not an academic, so it reads more fun. The first chapter I have you read about Darwin out on the Beagle, and how Darwin is really committed to the writings of Alexander von Humboldt. And then I have you read about Humboldt's book, The Cosmos. And so that's what we're going to deal with today, is really this emphasis on who Humboldt is, and this notion of the invention of nature. This is where it's really fun to be in a classroom. This is the joy of teaching, is to, okay, let's sit back and, what does this mean, invention of nature? You know, here's my office, of course, and you have Darwin here on the computer, and then this is St. Francis of Assisi, a statue some students gave me, 15 or more, 20 years ago. And we talked, Francis had a vision of creation, and as held together by the Creator and stuff, and that's where a lot of our class started, was in that development of the Middle Ages, that development of a medieval view, which had a comprehensive view of nature. But then a new comprehensive view of nature, an invention of nature, comes with the beginning of the 19th century. And that's what we're thinking today. We're just, and I never promise you like a systematic approach. My view of teaching is to hopefully spark thoughts and discussion, and so call me and talk to me, or go hang out with your friends. When you can't hang out with your friends, but go on a walk, just separate distance, and think about these things. Okay, so we're talking about Humboldt today, Alexander von Humboldt. He fits into our model that Chapin talks about as a very wealthy, upstate, his brother, and he, I think you could maybe argue, this would be a fun thing, two most influential people that influenced the modern world would be him and his brother. We'll talk about his brother next time. Develops the system of the university that we live in today. So the brother would be more important, because the system of the university today dominates thinking all around the world, and for good or ill, and then this idea of nature, the way Humboldt perceives it. Alex, the younger brother. So these two brothers, the Humboldts, crucially important. Now Humboldt, Alex, the younger brother, as many books point out, has more places on Earth named after him than anyone else. The older brother may be more influential, but he was a college administrator, and they don't get things named after them. The Humboldt Current, which appropriately takes you straight into the Galapagos, so there's like geographically a story of Humboldt leading to Darwin right here. This is the Humboldt Peak in Nevada. There's a Humboldt Range. There's a Humboldt Range of mountains in Antarctica. Humboldt State, Humboldt County, Humboldt all sorts of things up in Northern California. You got on the moon, there's the Humboldt Sea, at the center of the Humboldtianum Basin, So this guy Humboldt is just everywhere. So when you spell him, just remember there's a D in there, Humboldt. And as this book points out, this isn't part of your assignment, but this is Humboldt widened this concept. He's working off of Descartes, these Romantic poets, Goethe, And then he's coming in and he's going, Humboldt widened this concept. Although his own theories of animal electricity were eventually proved wrong, they did give him a foundation of what would become his new understanding of nature. See, that's the invention of nature right there. And then he goes, Humboldt applied them to nature in a much broader level, interpreting the natural world as a unified whole that is animated by interactive forces. This new way of thinking changed his approach. If everything was connected, then it was important to examine the differences and similarities without ever losing sight of the whole. Comparison became Humboldt's primary means of understanding nature, not abstract mathematics. So, heavily oriented toward observational science. And this is going to be Darwin. This is going to be a huge emphasis within modern science. But it's not a mathematical modeling like we've talked about before. It's like Haley did that statistics and stuff like that. That's not Humboldt. It's not Darwin. So it's close observation, close comparison, similarities, differences, and then, contemplation and thinking about it. Okay? So you have this whole notion of, a nature versus creation. Let's go into the book, the assignment. Let me just point out to you some things here to keep an eye on. It's really well written, so enjoy it. It starts out with Darwin being seasick, which I think is fun. Darwin on the Beagle, he's seasick. But, of course, what he's got on his bookshelf, Darwin's carrying these bookshelves on he's got his Charles Lyell, which we haven't talked about, but great, book, Principles of Geology, very important for this, for seeing things, what's called uniformitarianism, sort of like, it's just sort of things work uniformly. Nothing radical, no cataclysms, uniformitarianism. See how I do that? All right, and then you have the Humboldt. There's 7 volumes of this personal narrative of him, Humboldt's great explorations of South America and stuff. So this is fun, and it goes through Darwin and stuff. And then, enjoy reading about Darwin. Darwin's hugely important. Throughout the Beagle's voyage, Darwin is engaged with an inner dialogue with Humboldt. That's the sort of point, is you can't really understand Darwin without Humboldt behind him. And oftentimes when you read books, you get a lot more Lyell behind Darwin, which is true, but I agree with this. This is Humboldt is really probably the more key figure behind Darwin. And then you get into a discussion here of Humboldt's Cosmos, and then how Darwin ends his book with this notion of entangled nature, where he gets it from Humboldt. And then this book, Cosmos, is just amazing. Now, Darwin did not have Cosmos. The Cosmos was written later. Darwin gets back in 1836. Cosmos is written something in the 40s, I think, or something like that. So, and cosmos is this term for the sort of world machine, the universe, the cosmos as an interactive, ordered system, And so that's it. This is a good little. He talks about his brother, talks about the University of Berlin, which we're going to talk more about next time. Good stuff as always here. And then we get to this end, which is, let's go back to my little picture of it here, this last page. He writes it in 1845. Cosmos was unlike any previous book about nature. Humboldt took his readers on a journey from outer space to Earth, then from the surface of the planet to its inner core. He discusses comets, the Milky Way, the solar system, as well as terrestrial magnetism, volcanoes, and the snow line of the mountains. It's a great book, okay? He wrote about the migration of human species, about plants and animals and microscopic organisms. Where others insisted that nature was stripped of its magic as humankind became penetrated into its deepest secret. This is the disenchantment of nature. Humboldt believed exactly the opposite. See, How could this be, Humboldt asked, the world in which the colored rays of the aurora unite in a quivered sea flame, creating a sight so otherworldly? Okay? Here Humboldt spelled out his vision of a world that pulsated with life. Everything was part of this never-ending activity that animated forces. Humboldt wrote, nature was a living whole where organisms were bound together in a net-like, intricate fabric. Well, I submit to you that's exactly the Franciscan vision, too, of creation. But here, what you have is it's re-enchanted by Darwin, re-enchanted by Humboldt. It's re-enchanted by Haeckel, who we're going to talk about here. But it's re-enchanted without God. It's without an enchanter. It's an enchantment without an enchanter. You know me. I'm a big fan of this guy. So let's close off here. You know, Darwin comes in, and there's a tension that develops. This tension is Darwin does ultimately see the vivifying force to be rooted in struggle, tension. Now, the other way of thinking is much more is to emphasize sort of beauty. Now, these are not mutually exclusive, okay? But there's tension here. Is the world, is the cosmos fundamentally a struggle? Or, selfish gene type of thing. Or is it something that is beautiful and actually nurturing and motherly? Okay, this would be, I think, Franciscan, and also a lot of the ways nature works. And this is Haeckel. We have Mount Haeckel up in the Sierra Nevada, and he invents this around 1866. This word ecology comes from the Greek, means home, study of the home, and it's to think of nature as our home, the cosmos as our home, and as a home, it's a friendly place, it's a nurturing place. It's still very interactive, it's vivified by all sorts of close balances of nature. And so balances and mutual interaction, mutual responsibilities that emphasize the household, political household, versus fundamental struggle. Sort of a great tension in the way they do this. And both of these then are without a enchanter. It's an enchanted world of this life, but it's without an enchanter. So think on these things, talk among yourselves, and maybe next summer we can have some coffee together. Let me go turn this off.